Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for attending our webinar. This webinar is about ESSER funding and specifically how you can use your ESSER funding to purchase technology education equipment. And I am joined here by Nick Pinchuk, who is our regional director for zSpace, and also Amanda Austin, who is the marketing director for zSpace. We're going to have a video here that I will get started, and then we will also be going in a little bit further about zSpace products and how you can use your ESSER funding to purchase them. Without further ado, unless Nick, would you like to say anything else before we get started?
No, it's a pleasure to be here today, Zoe. I appreciate your support and H2I's. They are a trusted, wonderful channel partner of ours that help us sell to school districts and universities in the Midwest. And we're just thrilled to partner with them and to be here today to talk about this with our customers. So thanks for having us.
Thank you. All right, get this started here.
Thanks for joining me today to talk about a space that students are extremely excited to engage in. A space they use currently for entertainment purposes, whether it's for gaming or for fun communication using applications such as Snapchat or Pokemon Go. My name is Joe Parlier, and I'm the Senior Director of Education Solutions at zSpace. And at zSpace, we've leveraged this technology that students use for the purpose of learning. So again, thanks for joining me today as we talk about the leading evidence-based AR/VR solution for math, science, and career and technical education. And equally important, how are school districts around our country leveraging funding to provide this learning experience for their students. Before we begin though, I'd like to define a few terms. We'll talk today about virtual reality, often referred to as VR. Virtual reality is an experience that is often delivered through a head-mounted display, or sometimes called an HMD. Characteristics of VR include a full immersive experience, meaning once the student places the head-mounted display on his face, that student is going to be isolated from his surroundings and only have access to the content presented through that device. We also hear a lot about augmented reality, or AR. Augmented reality is different in that you do not have to have a device to place on your head. Instead, by using a phone, tablet, or similar device, you're able to use applications to view the real environment. The difference, though, is that you augment this environment with digital content. You also can share the experience. Because you're not wearing an HMD, you can show the image to anyone around you, have discussions about the content, make changes to the environment, and explore what's happening in that space. Today, we're going to talk specifically about these two types of reality, virtual and augmented reality, work together, and the elements create an experience we refer to as the zSpace experience. It's an experience that's collaborative, interactive, and includes not only the hardware, the software applications, and the content through lessons, but also the support for teachers to integrate this type of instruction into their classrooms on a daily basis. So let's check out a little more about zSpace.
Welcome to the real world of virtual reality on the zSpace platform. What is zSpace? It's a tabletop virtual reality that's transforming education today, regardless of whether students are learning at school or remotely. zSpace functions as your typical Windows PC until you open a zSpace application, and then the magic really begins. Long story short, zSpace tracks the user's eyewear and stylus in real time, allowing the user to comfortably reach in, interact, move around, dissect, blow up, or change different variables within the environment.
All right, so hopefully that got you excited about this new technology tool. I want to cover a couple of things that were talked about in the video in more detail. First, you may have noticed that the zSpace device is a computer. It comes in two forms. You have the all-in-one or desktop computer, or you have the laptop. Regardless of the device you're using, the experience is very similar, as well as the content. These integrate into your other technology solutions. For example, if you have interactive flat panels or smart boards, you'll connect your device to those devices to share the experience with large groups, or you'll put them in labs so students can work at the devices in small groups or independently. When we think about the desktop or all-in-one computer, the device comes with not only the computer, but also a stylus and glasses that allow for the interactions you saw to occur. You'll notice here with these two students that one student is seated, has on a pair of tracked glasses, and is holding the stylus. That's what allows for the interaction to occur and for the images to project into the space, creating the immersive learning experience. You'll also notice that the young student with the pink shirt on has on passenger glasses. These non-tracked glasses allow that student to experience the same content so that the experience can be collaborative. Again, with the laptop, the similar experience in a different form factor. So here we see the laptop, again with the stylus and tracked glasses, allowing the user to experience the content. Both devices that you've had a chance to see are Windows-based computers that run and allow the student to do all things that they would do on any other computer, while having the enhanced features that allow for the interaction to occur. And as we found over the last year and a half, the integration of this type of technology looks very different in different settings, from the face-to-face to the remote learning experience, and most importantly, at different places in between. Meaning we've had schools across the country to leverage this tool in pure face-to-face instruction, but also through distance learning by teachers being able to share the experience with their students. So why use a tool like zSpace? When students are using a tool like zSpace, they're leveraging virtual reality. What is it? How does it work? And what can it do? Well, believe it or not, virtual reality has been around since the 80s. And in an analysis of research about how it's been used effectively, Jeremy Bailenson out of Stanford University came up with an acronym to help us remember how this tool can support learning. The acronym is DICE. And what it tells us is that when students learn in this environment, they're able to do things that would otherwise be too dangerous to do, would be impossible to do, would be counterproductive to do, or would be too expensive. So when we think about assembly and disassembly of an engine, you can have students do this easily and safely in this environment. Being able to run physics experiments and do them on different planets to see the impact of gravity. Things that we would never do, like put jetties on a beach to see how it devastates the land, can be simulated and are now productive. And then things that would typically be very expensive, like providing students access to dissectables up to the human body. It's something that's expected in business and industry. As you see here in the automobile industry, AR and VR is already a multi-billion-dollar industry that's growing very quickly. Companies like Tesla, they're requiring in their job descriptions that programmers have the ability to create AR and VR software. Even organizations like the American Veterinary Medical Association now allow for the inclusion of 3D veterinary anatomical software systems. And companies like Delta are ramping up their virtual reality training so that their employees can practice processes, receive feedback before actually coming into contact with everything from airplane engines to the customers that are so valuable to them. And this is something that's happening all over our country. In over 2,500 school districts with over 1 million students, the tool zSpace is being used for science, math, career technology education instruction. And in these schools, they're really finding 5 key outcomes. First, and most importantly, they're seeing the improvement of student performance as it relates to certification exams in career and technical education and performance on standardized assessments that students are required to take for their different subjects. But we all know that that's not the driving factor of what we do every day in education. While outcomes are important, what's more important is the excitement that our students have about learning and the things they take away from our classrooms every day that inspire them to choose the path they choose for their life. So when you think about things like helping students have a deeper understanding of content, creating a level of engagement that motivates students to learn, and most importantly, again, preparing students to go into the workforce, regardless of where their entry may take place, whether during and after high school, or whether they go into post-secondary institutions and then choose career paths that require that level of education. These 5 key findings are found in research done externally to zSpace and are the basis of something we're going to talk in a few minutes about, and that's the alignment of zSpace to supporting some of the expectations that the state and federal departments of education have on schools and school districts as it relates to their allocation of funding resources.
Accelerate student learning through engaging instruction with zSpace.
zSpace allows them to gain a deeper understanding because they can really pick apart all the layers, they can see how different things work, they can manipulate it and really get in there and look at things in a different way.
Many students are much more interested. Their participation has gone way up, and their grades because of that have also gone up because they enjoy using these machines and seeing something in real life.
It really prepares the students for their careers in health careers. Our engineering students are getting a lot more experience. It's cutting-edge technology. It's giving our students 21st century environments and the experience that they need.
It makes you want to learn more using zSpace because it's virtual reality. It's awesome.
I have various levels of students in my class. They get a more in-depth understanding of the concept because it's kind of like hands-on, and they love the 3D effects. They can pull it out and look at it and turn it around. All of a sudden, the concepts come alive. They're open, they're receptive, they're energetic, they're more engaged.
As you plan to address learning loss in your district, consider accelerating students' learning by providing evidence-based instruction in a way that many students may have never had a chance to learn before with zSpace.
So now that you've had a chance to hear from students and teachers about the impact it's had on learning, let's talk a little bit about the alignment between a tool like zSpace, or the integration of augmented and virtual reality into instruction, and the allowable activities under the federal guidelines for ESSER funding. Here we have the set of allowable activities. And when you really dive into these and look at the expectation that you can use funding for activities that would otherwise be authorized under ESSA or Perkins funding, the use of a tool like zSpace supports those areas. You also have the ability to address the unique needs of learners. In a research document that will be coming out within the next month, you'll see where Rebecca Hite, professor at Texas Tech University, not only talks about the overall impact of zSpace on learning for all students, but also for specific subgroups of students, including those low-income students, students who have unique learning needs or special exceptionalities, for students who have English learning needs, and then for those students who are in underrepresented populations. Also, when it comes to planning for how you'll carry out instruction for your students. Purchasing education technology for students. Keep in mind that zSpace is a Windows-based computer. So the things that you would do on zSpace, while very different from a typical device, the device can be used for the more traditional computing needs. As we wrap up the summer, we've had many schools realize the impact of zSpace on motivating students to participate in and grow academically in summer programs. Those same schools plan to integrate it into their after-school programs as a way to really attract students to be excited about their participation in those additional instructional settings. And then as ways to maintain your operations and continue your services to students. As schools return and they need to provide lab-based experiences to students who choose to learn virtually, there's a real opportunity to integrate the tool. So as you're thinking about your plan for use of ESSER funding, we'll support you in providing the language and information you need to include in your overall plan. And that information will essentially include the type of device you need to use, along with some standard software. And then, based on how you plan to implement, if you're an elementary or a middle school, having access to STEAM applications. If you're a middle school with a special focus area or magnet focus, or a high school or a college, having access to our advanced science applications. We have schools at all levels that add on special packages based on their specific needs. And then in the career and technical education, with not only ESSER funds, but Perkins funds, providing access to that NOCTI certification exam aligned content that supports improvement on those certification exams in multiple program areas. But zSpace is a full solution. It's not only about giving your teachers the hardware and the software, it's also about providing professional development through asynchronous courses with over 25 and growing that focus not only on application use, but the true integration of the technology to impact learning, as well as troubleshooting and technical support. Providing instructors with a community of their peers where they can share ideas, share lessons, and share created content. And then having the technical resources and support to provide it for a successful implementation. We're your partner in the journey of educating your kids to the highest levels with the most innovative technologies. So let's work together to create a vision for what this implementation could look like in your school.
All right. Great information, not only about ESSER funding, but also zSpace products and how they're helpful in the classroom. Nick, I know that there's another document that you wanted to share. So I will pull that up here. All right. Can you see my screen okay?
I can, yes, thank you.
Awesome.
So Joe did a great job of articulating, what zSpace is, and he's got his doctorate in education, which I don't have, so he clearly has the background and the expertise to articulate that. What I want to do is kind of just walk through the evidence base again and what that means and what we think that means for zSpace customers, and obviously as it aligns to and works towards being used for ESSER Cares funding and other funding, and then get into maybe, Zoe, just some ways that zSpace can be applied specifically in this environment. And this didn't, just start immediately because of the ESSER Cares stimulus funding that came aboard, but how we think we are obviously aligned to the funding and to the needs. So, for those who aren't aware, and Joe mentioned, virtual reality headsets started in the 1980s. I think they actually started a little bit before that too. So this is this has been around for a long time, and there have been universities and researchers who have been studying this technology in general and have found over time just what people would assume, that these experiential, immersive environments, and just think of flight simulators and driving cars and learning how to do things virtually, are highly engaging. They increase not only your cognitive memory, but your muscle memory for doing tasks and working in certain environments. Students and adults who've used this, they ask better questions, they can hold on to the content longer, they can make better connections, and it really mimics or mirrors classic constructivist and or experiential learning environments. So this has been studied and the research is out there. zSpace has had multiple researchers work with us, both out of the Friday Institute from North Carolina State University, Texas Tech University, and you'll see in some of the citations later, Dr. Rebecca Height has really embraced our platform as a tool for all kinds of learners, high flyers, struggling learners, students who are on the spectrum with autism and Asperger's and other things too. But zSpace has been studied and has found to be able to create better models, to improve performance on assessments, to build this, again, experiential learning and muscle memory associated with different things. And there's also been little mini action research done in schools and districts that have used this for various purposes. But in this document, which we'd be happy to share after today, and if you can just kind of scroll through it, Zoe, it talks about how we have met the different tiers of evidence that are required, to meet some of the criteria for applying funding to certain programs or interventions that the federal government is asking districts and schools and universities to look at. So these are specific citations around zSpace and work that has been done. And again, we'll make this document available to people. They also can go to the zspace.com/research page and just look for both evidence on zSpace and on evidence for mixed reality solutions in general. So just know that we've aligned the research that's been done to the tiers that have been required. So that kind of, is the evidence piece. And then when it comes to the funding piece, and you can close that document if you like, Zoe. As most people know, there's been 3 rounds so far of ESSER funding. We're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars, once in a generation funding opportunity to both solve some of the COVID specific issues that there have been challenges around, and also to hopefully set our schools and our universities up for the next several years, if not decades, to improve how we deliver instruction and support our students in all kinds of environments. So the first round really was designed specifically for addressing COVID in the schools and the remote learning that was required, or not required, that just happened immediately. So, for PPE, for cleaning solutions, for getting students Chromebooks if they didn't have one at home, enhanced Wi-Fi for students who may not have had good Wi-Fi in their communities, which then led to the second and third rounds of ESSER Cares, which are getting a little bit more towards enhancing the learning environment and providing supports for students, for teachers, for the community. So we're really talking about both taking care of the students and the teachers, and those can be mental health, social emotional learning supports, providing extra counselors, and then enhancing the learning environment for all students, especially the students who really struggled during the past 16 months of the pandemic, who maybe fell behind, who weren't engaged, who tapped out for a little while. So how do we provide tutoring, extra learning time, extra supports? There's also been this term called learning loss that some people claim happened during the pandemic, and how do we start to accelerate that? And Joe talked a little bit about how zSpace checks some of the boxes around the activities that are approved for schools and districts and colleges and universities to participate in, like after school and things like that. So I think what everyone needs to do is look to their state plans, which are to be reported to the federal government and Department of Education and approved. All of those plans are going to be different. They are available, online. Not all of them have been approved yet, but they are tending to fall into some common categories. So again, tutoring, What do we do to help students catch up? And for all students, but especially for struggling students, you shouldn't do more of the same instruction if students are struggling. So what can those new environments or those new modalities look like? And again, with a research-based, evidence-based solution that's highly engaging and experiential and can allow students to understand content faster, hold on to it longer, make other connections, we feel we're a very strong solution, whether that's in school or after school or summer school tutoring. Teachers and teaching, that environment needs to be supported and giving extra supports. And a lot of technology was thrown at teachers during the pandemic, before the pandemic, and will continue to. And Joe talked about our professional development and our supports for this environment. You know, we just can't put these tools in teachers' hands and hope that they work. So as people look at their professional development plans and teacher support plans, you know, we would love to be a part of that mix and just enhancing those skills and moving instruction into this more emerging technology environment. People are also, again, looking at, you know, learning loss and what are the best ways to accelerate that. And again, having more engaging tools for students to be able to use and do things with, we think are incredibly powerful, especially to that DICE acronym that Joe talked about from Jeremy Bailenson. Like, if things just happen to be dangerous, there's certain learning that needs to be done, but it's impossible to do in most traditional classrooms. If things are counterproductive, or if the real equipment is just too expensive, the virtual environment can be a much lower cost and really productive tool for school teachers and students to use to handle these really important STEM and career and workforce readiness skills. So look to your state plans, look to the alignment that they're asking you to have to their state plans. And again, zSpace doesn't cover everything, but we feel we're very well aligned to the priorities in nearly all the state's plans. And we've got an evidence-based background to make sure you're doing something that we feel is incredibly powerful and can work to accelerate learning for students. So I'll just kind of stop there, Zoe, for either any questions or chats or reflections.
Great, thank you very much. I'm actually going to share another web page here.
Sure.
So are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So one of the biggest questions that I've received from multiple schools I've spoken with is where to even start. And you mentioned that it's broken out differently state by state.
Mm-hmm.
As I've been talking to different schools in different states, I've found that this very much is the case. And some states have it much more obviously laid out how to even go about obtaining funding, whereas other states, you look around and you can't find a lot about where to even begin trying to get the ESSER funding.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them will say what it can be used for, but they won't say where you even go if you're a school looking to purchase some of these items. So the zSpace website is a fantastic resource for this. It's broken out state by state. So I'll, for example, here, just click California, and it will go right to the California Department of Education funding page. Fantastic resource for anybody that's trying to get buy-in from decision makers at the schools or the decision makers themselves that are looking for where they even begin when it comes to ESSER. So I want to thank zSpace for putting this together, because it is a very huge task. And I know that a lot of school employees and teachers and administrators are trying so hard to do the best thing they can to help kids, especially in this difficult time. And this is such a helpful resource for all of the educators out there.
Sure. Zoe, can I just ask you to do 2 other states? Again,
Okay.
zSpace works with and through H2I to sell to school districts in the Midwest. I'm based in the Midwest, and I don't have responsibility for Canada or California, excuse me. Just click on Illinois and Indiana, just real quickly, just those
For
two
sure.
sites, please.
Okay, here's Illinois, and here's Indiana. So this one is the Indiana. Again, goes right to the section that everybody is going to be looking for all the funding. And then the Illinois one, same thing, goes to grants. Another really great thing about this page, the part that's broken out state by state is down near the bottom, but there's also additional grants and funding that are mentioned on here. So if a school is finding that, oh, they've spent all their allocated ESSER funding, they can come here and figure out where they get more funding. I know
Sure.
that's something a lot of people have asked us about.
No, I appreciate that. And we would always ask, our customers to, you don't always have to have 100% state approval to do a zSpace purchase or any purchase. But I also would just strongly encourage them to look to their states for specific guidance. And again, some states have consortium buying opportunities. The state ESSER priorities are different by state. I do know that Indiana's ESSER 3 plan has been approved. Illinois hasn't yet, and unless that's changed in the last 25 minutes or so. But they're very close. And again, states do have different grants, and they do have different priorities. So again, we tend to align to the ESSER funding priorities very well. Joe mentioned Perkins. We have also had states, which is the CTE grant funding source that is in all states. We have had people use Title I funds, Title IV funds. We do have people who've used 21st Century Community Learning grants. We have people who use technology funds. So there's no one way to purchase zSpace, but if you're looking to ESSER Cares and other state priorities, be aware of what's going on, and we're trying to put as many ideas in your hands as possible for how to fund zSpace, because we know it's not a traditional line item in most budgets, and there's going to be other people telling you, obviously, that they're perfectly aligned to ESSER Cares, but there's lots of opportunities for people to fund zSpace, and we certainly are more than happy to help any district, college, or university think through that.
Great, thank you so much for all the information. Very much appreciate it, and I know that the schools we work with are also going to be very grateful for all the fantastic information you've provided today.
You bet. Any final questions or chats?
I don't think so. And as always, all of the different resources that we've shown today, as well as a recording of the webinar, will be sent out after we conclude here. So if anybody has additional questions, would you be all right if they get a hold of me and then I forward on your way?
100%. Please have people reach out, and they can go to zspace.com and submit a request for information. I'll just very quickly share my email. It's npinchok@zspace.com. Again, I handle 8 states in the Midwest. I handle a lot of the H2I states. Happy to help at any time with any prospects or customers.
Thank you very much. And H2I Group is thrilled to be a partner with zSpace as well. Thank you so much for jumping on the webinar today. Appreciate it.
Our pleasure. Thanks for everyone's time.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a good day, everybody. Bye.